We know it's been quite a while, but welcome back to Queerly Christian. I'm Leah, and I use she, her pronouns.
I'm Avery, and I use they, them pronouns.
And any weird noises you hear in the background is Avery's cat.
She's currently scratching through her litter box, because of course she is.
She's mad that we're not paying attention to her because she is a ham. Here she comes. So Avery and Nerese are visiting me in Atlanta. So we thought, since it's been a while, we would give you guys some updates on our lives and then jump into our topic.
Okay, so the last time we recorded was all the way back in August, which was the last time we've been together in person, was for my top surgery. And since then, I started my fall semester, my second year of seminary. And I also, at the same time, started my field ed placement at a church called Covenant Community Church, and I have loved it there so much. I got to work with the kids, have a class on transgender stuff, start up Theology on Tap, preach like 6 times, which is awesome, and do a lot of other cool stuff with this really, really neat church. But yeah, that's what I have been up to, and I'm so glad to have been with Leah for the past couple weeks.
So I am in my 4th year, good grief, of audiology graduate school. There are only 4 years, so after this I'll be done. We're going to graduate roughly the same time, which will be cool.
Yeah.
But I am in Atlanta for my, essentially what you would call a residency. We call it an externship. So for our 4th year, our last year, we go full-time working in a clinical setting. So I am here at the VA, and I love it so far, and it's fantastic. I've gotten to explore a lot of Atlanta with AV here, so it's been pretty cool. We walked to the Midtown neighborhood the other day. I tweeted about it. It was pretty neat.
It was pretty gay.
But since I am in a new city, since I'm in Atlanta, I have been looking for a church, and I did a lot of Googling preemptively. I did it's gaychurch.org.
Yes.
That I used the search engine, which has been really cool. You can even filter it by denominations if you want to. And we've gotten to visit 2 thus far since Amy's been here. And in this process, I realized how annoying it is to try to find a church, especially in an area where you are unfamiliar. With.
And in the Bible Belt, I don't think that helps. Yeah, I've been in Louisville for the past 2 years. The first year, I lived without a church there. I didn't go to church. My seminary has chapel services on Thursdays and Fridays, and I went to a lot of those, but I did not go to Sunday church because I tried out a couple and was so exhausted by trying them and being misgendered there and other stuff that went on there that I didn't go back, and I didn't keep looking.
So we thought that would be a good idea to talk to you guys about the process of finding it, about what to look for when you're visiting a church, and some things that we would love for churches to do to make this a little easier.
For all LGBT plus people, not just gay cis people.
We also have some suggestions for disability access, making things a little bit more clear and accessible.
Because for any marginalized group, we have a responsibility to let them in our churches, give them access to our churches, because they belong there too. We belong there too. So that's what we're talking about today. And we figured we would start by just describing how we go about finding a church, looking on websites to begin with.
Yeah. I remember a few weeks ago, Emmy Kegler, if any of you follow her on Twitter, tweeted and asked what people look for when they're visiting a church. And I replied that if I do not see expressly written out on their website that they are open and affirming, I will not even walk in the door. I want the words. I want them to say, we welcome, people regardless of sexual orientation and gender identity. I want it, spelled out in writing. I want it as part of their mission statement. It has to be clear for me to feel comfortable walking into the door. So that's something I definitely look for first off. Is there anything you look in particular on the website?
Right off the bat, like I mentioned to you, and so you agree with me that it can't just say gay-friendly, gay welcoming, even just saying LGBT welcoming. I like it to really spell out trans welcoming. As a non-binary person and someone who feels a lot of solidarity with all trans people, I need it to say specifically trans friendly, and if it mentions non-binary or genderqueer people by name, that's a big plus. Unfortunately, I can't be too picky. If they don't say non-binary, if they say trans, I'll still visit, give them the benefit of the doubt. But to have that actual word there is a big bonus.
I feel like for so many things, not even just in churches, but in other organizations, the T ends up being silent.
Yeah.
So it's really important to make that clear.
Especially in churches, because people don't realize how their language excludes trans and or non-binary people. They don't think about it. Along with that, I do like to see something about what bathrooms are available. Do they have any gender neutral or all gender bathrooms? Or do they only have men's and women's bathrooms? I like that to be spelled out clearly on the website, just so I know what to expect. I also like to see pictures if possible. You can't always tell whether someone is queer or LGBT just by looking at them, but I will totally...
We did look at some pictures of congregations.
I will snoop on Facebook and see if anyone looks super queer as a sort of...
Could they be gay? Could they be gay?
Yeah.
And I feel like that could be an interesting indicator when you go to visit. If they say they're open and affirming, and yet there are no queer people in the pews, that could be a red flag.
Yeah. Because again, like, you can say in theory that you're open and affirming, but in practice you do things that kind of make people leave. Yeah.
Definitely.
I also do like to look. I like to see what accessibility information they have on the website. One, is their website easy to look at? Is it really bright yellow?
Is it updated?
Yeah.
Has it been updated since 2012?
Yeah. So I like to see if they mention anything about accessibility friendly entrances, because I want to go somewhere where everyone can literally just get into the building would be nice. It seems like something that should be possible. The last thing I look for that I'll mention on a website is I'll look on the calendar. I'll do a search, and sometimes I have to go to Google and type the website name into the search bar, and then say transgender, and I'll click search and see what comes up. If they've had any events that are trans specific or LGBT in general, if they've been involved in like a pride thing, or had any classes on transgender or non-binary language and identities and whatnot. Or gay Bible studies, anything like that.
Anything to indicate that they're trying.
Yes, that it is not just a theory, that in practice they are working towards being truly affirming and inclusive. So yeah, I do a fairly thorough search of a website. Even if I don't find lots of things on the calendar, again, can't be super picky. There's only so many churches. Like we said at the very beginning, if it says open and affirming and gives me enough of no really bad vibes, I'll visit it. I'll give it a try. But how defensive and nervous I feel when I enter the doors will depend on how many good things I found on their website. I have anxiety, as well as being queer, as well as being autistic. There's a lot of factors when I enter a church that just build up that I become very defensive, and I don't want to be. Like, I like to be an open-minded and optimistic person, but I've had so many times where I've been let down that defensiveness is my body's natural way of protecting me, my mind's natural way of saying, if this goes badly, you can walk away from it and survive it. So even if I'm excited about a church, there's a lot of anxiety in my stomach the whole time. Is it not?
And I'm sure that's the same case for many of you. I know many of us have been hurt by the church, and so walking into any new one is a brave thing to do.
Yes.
And so I would commend anybody for that. And it does take some time to open up. And if you have things that you know will help you feel more comfortable, feel free to go ahead and do that. Sometimes AV brings sewing just to give them something to do.
Yeah, because that way I can look down. I don't have to look up at people because I'm sewing. Gives me something to do with my hands that's pretty like normal. Or if you bring a pencil and paper to scribble, draw,
I always
take
do
notes.
that. I'm a big doodler. So I want to talk about the two churches that we visited here thus far and kind of compare and contrast, because there was a huge difference between the two of them.
There was.
The first church we went to, both were PCUSA, which is the denomination that we are currently involved in.
It's the progressive branch of Presbyterianism.
Yeah. And so we went to this church, big, beautiful old building. the word I would use to describe that congregation would be listless.
Yeah. Sleepy.
Yeah, throughout all the singing, the preaching, what have you, it was boring.
I mean, we are the frozen chosen.
But I have never been so bored since I was a child.
Yeah.
I mean,
it was like, and not to say that we go to church to be entertained, but I
want to use my brain.
Yeah, you want to be stimulated. You want to feel God's presence. I didn't feel God's presence. Not that it wasn't there, but I'm already very anxious. I have these walls built up that makes it hard to feel that. And all the things going on in the church didn't help me break down those walls to feel connected to the people and to God. Another one of my issues, though, is especially when I'm anxious, being touched is a big no. It causes me to shut down emotionally, mentally, and just physically feel really icky. And so having people like come up and touch my shoulder without me expecting it,
or going to shake the hand,
and be like, hey, and I'm like, no, that is a big thing. As an autistic person and someone with anxiety and someone who just doesn't like to be touched, ask people before you touch them, especially if they're new to your church and you don't know them very well. But even if you do, it's good to just be like, hey, are you a hugger? Are you a shaker? I'll give you a peace sign. Are you a mover
and a shaker?
You know what I mean. But like, ask first, because you want the passing of the peace or your greeting to be a connection of real love and peace between people, not something that causes them anxiety. The cat is behind our laptop, so that's a little distracting. Hello, dear. So
come here.
Yeah, that's a big thing to me. Please ask before you touch. I actually just sewed a patch that says "Do not touch me without my consent." That maybe I can bring next time I visit a church.
Yes,
just so they know.
She's perfectly content right there, isn't she? Okay, so then to contrast it to the church that we visited the very next week, it was a smaller building, and it was on Pentecost.
Yes, Pentecost.
So everything in there was red. Everything, most of the congregants there were in red. We were in like blue.
I was wearing like a salmon color.
Yeah, I was in like close. A blue shirt. So we were like, we're visitors.
Yeah, we standing out.
We did not plan for this. Yeah. But it was actually really great. Yeah. It was a smaller building, but I felt like there were more people there.
Oh, way more. Yeah, it was like 200.
I'm horrible at estimating.
Or at least 100
people. At least 100. Maybe 150.
And the best thing was the children were so involved. This is one. If your church doesn't have kids, then it doesn't have kids. This one had a lot of kids, and they involved them majorly.
Yeah. As part of the festivities for Pentecost, they had them recite different things and sing different things in different languages. Yeah. And then the kids had made streamers and banners and these like toilet paper tube shakers with like streamer flames coming out of them, and put them out for people to use. And we were kind of chilling with our hands down, not using them, but the kids started to parade by us as it was ending, and this one little boy noticed we didn't have one, grabbed a shaker off the end of the pew and handed it to us.
Yeah, which is it's an easy, simple way to involve people, and if we didn't want to do it, we could just put it back down, not a big deal. And so for me, it was a way, like I said, I come with all this defensiveness built up. That was the start of me slowly beginning to let my guard down a little, to be able to relax and feel like I'm connected to these people. Again, there was touching. People were trying to touch me, say hello, shake hands. And I get it, it's friendliness, but to be more accessible and inclusive, think about it, ask before you touch. Pretty please.
Yes. And we just really liked it. So I'm going to go back and we're going to see what a more normal, I guess, everyday service is like. But I'm going to go back because I loved it. It should be on the church to make people feel welcome, which is why we have our laundry list of suggestions.
Yes.
A lot of them have to do with websites again. Kind of to start with a silly one, but important also is if people could list somewhere, somehow, the average temperature of the sanctuary. I would love that.
And to me, that's not silly because a lot of people have sensory issues or some sort of chronic illness that causes warmth to be important to them.
I just want to know what to wear.
People just want to be comfortable. Yeah. So tell them if it's really cold or really warm or somewhere in between in your church. would be nice. Another one for me, again, with that sensory stuff is what instruments are going to be played at your service. If there's a really loud organ, I want to know, because I'll probably try to sit away from the organ. I might bring earplugs, because for me, they're really loud. I like organs, but they're so loud, it's painful. Is there going to be a full choir or just one person singing? Tell me what to expect when it comes to the music, and other noise if possible. Would be nice.
I'm super distracted by the cat.
Yeah, come here, Nerys. Oh, she's crying. She doesn't like to be hugged. This is my cat, Kira Nerys.
I call her Small Fry because I have a cat and she's a monster, and this little one is little.
All right, you don't have to stay with us. What else?
We do have an extensive list. We've kind of touched on some things already, being gay versus queer friendly, gay versus
LGBT.
trans friendly.
Yeah.
You know, fully encompassing everyone.
Yeah, because that was the church we really liked, the second one we visited. It had good stuff on its website about being open to people of all sexual orientations and gender identities.
I think they mentioned non-binary.
They did
queer.
At one point. They mentioned non-binary people. When I did the search engine on their whole website, they specifically mentioned. No, wait, they weirdly remember. Still a good sign, but it was something like, we welcome all men, women, and
souls
and other identified souls,
which we thought was so weird.
It's funny, but like you could just say and non-binary people or people of other genders, or
it sounds like they
outside the binary.
They welcome men, women, and all sorts of ghosts and spirits who live in the area.
Yeah.
Like if you are a disembodied soul, you can totally come to this church.
So weird wording, but at least they're aware that non-binary people exist. That's a great start.
Just be a little more careful on how you say it.
But yeah, but then in their pews, they had like an informational card, like what we believe. And one part of it was that we've been a gay-friendly church for decades. Yeah. Great, I'm glad you have been. What are you doing for bi people, asexual people, trans and or non-binary people? What are you doing for us? Being gay-friendly is great, but it's not the end-all be-all. And like, again, searching their website, I found a PDF from one of their youth group trips. And it said that trans or gender nonconforming youth who go are allowed to pick which gendered bedroom they decide to stay in. So again, we can see that in practice, they're doing some great things. They also had gender neutral bathrooms. So they're doing great things in practice. So now they just have the smaller work of getting the wording right. A lot of people have the opposite problem. So they're still a great church.
Wording in there, they also said a few times in service, I think brothers and sisters, terms like
men
that.
Men and women was mentioned. Mm-hmm. And so, again, on their website, they actually have a section on gender inclusivity and mention that they'll try to use language outside the binary. And then in practice, at least that service, they failed that. So
they did use she for God, which made me very excited.
Yes, they did. Yes, using pronouns other than he for God is always a bonus point. So again, they're doing a great job, and I don't think they would push anyone away based on what it's just a matter of keep trying, keep working. If we know you're trying, we'll keep going, and we see you're worthwhile. We see that it won't be an exhausting time being there, that we can contribute to your church in meaningful ways and without totally exhausting ourselves. When I have to go to a new church and teach them what non-binary means and teach them what sort of language they should use, it's tiring. I want to be part of your community immediately. I want to feel connected to you immediately. Having to teach you all that before I can feel fully included in the language used in worship, and not feel that disconnection of being called ma'am or she, would be nice to not have to go through that work before I can feel like a full part of the community.
I was going to say, speaking of time, it would be super cool if people listed the typical duration of a service.
Yes.
This was kind of a goof on Good Christian Fun, which is a podcast I've been listening to, where they talked about sometimes going to a church with multiple services can be good, because if this one starts at 10 and the next one starts at 11, then you know how long it's going to last. That's always super helpful, so that we know how long am I going to be here? How much energy am I going to have to expend to be here?
Especially for disabled people. it's so important to know. Or heck, people with children. For a lot of groups, it's nice to know how long you're gonna have to sit there. What else?
I think we've covered quite a bit of it.
Name tags at this church.
Oh, yeah.
Some of the people who worked there, I assume, had name tags. Only had their names. We were saying positions on the name tag would be cool.
Like, what do you
pronouns.
do? Yeah.
Pronouns would be awesome. Normalize that stuff. If you can get your church to normalize that, it means that when I say, hey, I use they pronouns, I won't get weird looks because everyone's doing it. And okay, one final thing, in case you're wondering why this matters. If you belong to a church that doesn't currently have a huge stance on being open and affirming, and you wonder why it even matters, how many LGBT people even want to go to church, it's such a small population, why do we need to cater to them? Well, there's a lot of answers to that. One is that Paul in the Bible says, I know he's a problematic figure, but I love what he says in 1 Corinthians about us being one body with many parts, and that if one of us suffers, we all suffer. If one of us is missing, we're not whole. We need everyone. You need us. We don't only need you in order to have a community in which we can worship God, which we do, but you also need us. I have a friend in Louisville named Willow, and she has worded it in terms of, as a trans person, her presence in the church is a gift to the church. They're not doing her a favor. We are doing your church a favor. When we come into your church.
Because everybody has gifts to bring to the table.
Yeah.
God didn't just leave us out of it. Like Avery's going to be a pastor, preacher.
Yeah.
I'm going to be a preacher's wife. I don't know. But I also really like music, and I think it would be cool maybe at this church if they are struggling to put certain aspects of what they already have written down into practice. If I could be of any help in that, I'd totally love that. This actually reminds me of the queerology thing we were just listening to. I'm just name dropping all over the place.
Sure. Queerology is another wonderful podcast.
And it was the one with Broderick Greer where he talks about you're not always going to be given a seat at the table. Sometimes you have to bring your own folding chair. And that goes the same way for coming to a church, whether or not they recognize that you are helping them out. It is important for us to be there, important for us to kind of shoulder our way in if necessary. But it's always good to find some place where you don't have to do that. They've already got the place set for you.
My perspective on that is that no one should have to do that. No marginalized person is obligated to do that, but some of us are called to do that. I personally, since I feel called to ministry, I feel called to be that person bringing up the folding chairs and saying, damn it, I sit here, I belong here, I am called to this, and you're gonna let me in. And I'm doing that so not everyone has to, because some people are not called to that, and we shouldn't have to do it. It should not be our job. And so that's why we're saying, yes, it's great if you can go to a church and make it better, if you're an LGBT person or a disabled person or whatever. But at the same time, if you're a church listening and you have influence in a church, don't make people do that. Do what you can to make it so they don't need to. Have a place at the table ready for them so they don't need to shove their way in. So we are one body, many members, many gifts, and we also follow Jesus, who said that he was a shepherd who, when he loses one sheep out of 100, leaves the large group behind to go and find the one that is alone. And that is what we are called to do as well. Just because the disability community is smaller than the whole. And it's pretty big. You'd be surprised. Same with the LGBT community. We're bigger than you might expect. But even if we are small, you have a responsibility as a Christian to let us in when we're pounding on your door, and to recognize that we are already in your midst right now, and to do more to make us feel like we belong there, because we do.
So I think that about wraps this up. If you guys have anything you want to discuss, you can always hit us up on Twitter, follow us on our Tumblr, or just comment below, start a discussion there. We're super glad to be able to make this video for you guys, to be back together in person and back on the screen for y'all. I am all finger guns today, so I'm going to stop. But thank you for watching, and don't be shy in any of our social media platforms.
Absolutely. If any of the things we said stood out to you, let us know what stood out to you, what you really like. If there's something else that we missed, that we didn't mention about being LGBT or disabled or another marginalized group trying to find a church. What is hard for you? What makes things easier? If you're part of a church that has done some action, has started trying to do some of this inclusive work, let us know about that. We would love to hear about it.
All right, guys. We'll see you later.
My face is so shiny.
So is mine.
Should we do something about it?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
My shiny face and me.
Shiny face, shiny
My
face.
shiny face and me.
Shiny face, shiny face.